welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a handyman who'll take any dirty job.
Tim Longo. I didn't know how it was going there, and then I remembered, yeah.
Then you recognize it. I wrote it down. People who saw me streaming our new game would have seen me like literally typing into my... let me just write that down. Anyway,
perfect.
Yeah, excellent. Got my intro. This game's already a success. And that game, of course, is 2001's Capcom, Devil May Cry, stylish hack and slash beat 'em up thing that I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about because it's not a game either of us has played, although we were very aware of it at the time. We were pretty busy when this came out, going into the last 5 months or so of Jedi Starfighter, and in fact, I think it came out maybe the week my second son was born. So no, that's not true. No, that's a year later. Got that wrong. Whatever year that kid was born. Happy birthday. Anyway, it has an interesting history, and I was really surprised looking this one up, what its origins were. But before we get into that, we should probably talk a little bit about this year. It's a year that we've revisited several times already. With games that we've played from this year are Eco, Grand Theft Auto 3. What else? Where
we
there was one more, at least one more.
Anachronox.
Anachronox, yes.
Shoot, those are the three that are coming to me.
Silent Hill. Silent Hill 2.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting point of comparison, considering the origins of this game, because originally this game was going to be Resident Evil 4. We'll talk about that in a moment. A lot of other notable titles this year. It was kind of an explosive time. Halo Combat Evolved came out this year, around the same time, maybe a couple months later. Metal Gear Solid 2 came out this year. Max Payne came out this year. So lots of different takes on action. A title we've brought up previously was Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. We were just talking about that in connection with our Diablo series. But also like Conker's Bad Fur Day. And another Capcom title, Onimusha Warlords, which is one of those games I've actually always meant to get around to, but never have. I also have GameCube titles this year, like Super Smash Bros. Melee, and I remember playing James Bond 007 Agent on Fire, or whatever that thing was. And of course, you had the Game Boy Advance doing well. But there's lots of other sort of first-year PlayStation 2 stuff, because, of course, the PlayStation 2 came out in late 2000 here in North America. So a game that I'm actually thinking about going back and playing again from that time is Jak and Daxter, which was a series I really, really loved. Or a game I really, really loved, I should say, a series. But yeah, a lot of sort of that launch era stuff. I mean, I remember playing Twisted Metal Black, which is a game that I have completed maybe 10 or 11 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, it was a couch co-op game that Andrew and I would play. Andrew Kirmse has come up before. It got to the point where we could play the whole game in like an hour and a half. So we got so good at it, so we just try mixing and matching all the different characters.
Right.
So it was just a game that we played for a while. It'd be like, well, we finished the thing. Hey, I want to go play through Twisted Metal Black again. I'd be, sure, why not? So yeah, interesting year.
Super Smash Brothers, Melee.
Yeah, mentioned
Pikmin.
That one. Pikmin was this year.
Luigi's Mansion, right? You mentioned that already.
Yeah, Luigi's Mansion's a good one too. It's a fun little game. This game was designed by Hideki Kamiya. As I alluded to, it was originally slated to be Resident Evil 4, and that would have made sense for Kamiya since he had previously been best known before that probably for Resident Evil 2, which he directed. The sort of series director on Resident Evil at that point was still Shinji Mikami, and he saw the direction that Kamiya was taking the game and made the call for it to be kind of its own thing. When it started, when it seemed to him that it was deviating too far from survival horror, the cool factor was then leaned into even further, and the character was changed from a sort of more generic Resident Evil style hero Tony to the much more flamboyant Dante. I almost introed this show this week with the same one I did a couple of weeks ago about going to hell with your buddy Virgil. Because Virgil's going to show up again. It would have worked again. So yeah, the second series in a row, we're going straight to hell. Kamiya actually went on to become part of Clover Studio, still under Capcom, and ultimately then left to co-found Platinum Games. He was the director at Capcom on Viewtiful Joe, one of the Capcom 6, and Okami. And then, of course, at Platinum, he led Bayonetta, which clearly has some of its origins here. The sort of tone of Bayonetta seems very similar to me, and has a lot of the same concerns. Although there you're fighting more angels and less demons, but it's definitely feels of a lineage for sure. Yeah. Anything else you can think of from this year?
No, not from the year per se.
All right.
Yeah, just it's definitely, Clover, the Clover legacy. This I feel like is, I don't know if it really can be said it's the beginning of that, but I think it's the game that people talk about as the beginning for them, and they've really become sort of so focused on this kind of thing. Even their multiple teams all kind of swim around in the same kind of pool, but it's just been a type of game that I've really not been drawn to for whatever reason. I might have mentioned this in a previous episode or last episode, but I definitely mentioned it to Brad that the only one of these that I've ever really played of this style was Platinum's Metal Gear Revengeance,
which of course you had to play.
I had to play. I mean, that was the only reason I had to play. I probably played it on easy. I'm sure I did. I don't remember. I just kind of barnstormed through it. It was fun, but it's just not my thing. And so this is definitely already starting off to be very foreign to me. But they have a style, yeah. And Bayonetta, I know you've played those, right?
I played some of Bayonetta. The tone, there's definitely a real mix of tone there, where you sort of have this high chaos, high fantasy concept, and then just some weird Japanese storytelling in between, and the whipsawing back and the whiplash basically going back and forth between those two things got to be a little bit much for me, and I never finished the game. But it's also extremely difficult, and I will say that although the lineage is not direct, I also feel like the Souls games have something in common with these in terms of the difficulty in paying attention. I think that these games, however, will allow for a little bit more button mashing. They're okay with you dropping down to the easier level of difficulty and maybe not having quite so much finesse to get through it. And then, of course, another game that we mentioned in pre-show in connection with this was God of War.
Right.
Which feels like the Greek myth version of this game in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think even distilled, a more arcadey, if that's possible, and distilled down version of this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely a game that you can mash like crazy, and timing is not super important. And of course, part of that is they pull the camera so far out that what they were looking for is a different sort of spectacle and less precision in what you do. So, but definitely has. I mean, it's even got the red orbs in that one, so it's definitely in the lineage.
Yeah. So yeah, nothing too much to add. It's just such a weird history that yeah, and probably some of the listeners knew about because it's a bit of a legendary story, um, but just so odd to think about it. But right off the bat, you can see some of the Resident Evil and some of the Capcom isms popping through, so we'll get there in a bit, I'm sure. But yeah, not a dull game.
Yeah, no, not a dull game.
It's pretty cool.
It is. It's
And
all
maybe even
about being
stylish.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. It's cool and stylish. I mean, come on. Check out that
Bravo.
jacket.
Bravo,
Oh, nice.
Devil May
Wow.
Cry.
Yeah, at this point, you're getting a little dull.
Yeah, what a wacky game. I mean, it's hard to know where to start for me.
Yeah.
With
Let's start from the very basics. So one of the things that did change, going from a Resident Evil style game to the game that this became, was the camera became a lot more dynamic. I think we can see a lot of Resident Evil in the structure and some of the ways you interact with the world, and in the sort of structure of the environment directly, not so much the structure of the gameplay, because this mission structure is something we'll probably have to talk about at some point as well. But the camera changes a lot more frequently, and feels a lot more open in a lot of ways, I think, than in a Resident Evil game.
well,
it's a fully realized 3D environment as well.
Yeah, and it tracks. Yeah, that's definitely one of the main differences. It's more dynamic in that it's reacting to the environment more than Resident Evil, which tended to be fixed cameras. But yeah, there's a lot more camera tracking to follow, and the character is much more dynamic. Right, you're moving more quickly. You can, because of just simple things like jumping and even sort of double jumping, they're going to have to accommodate that. So you could see them, not to jump into the details of camera stuff, but you could see them struggling with that shift, I would say, with how to grapple with that in their world design and camera design and such. And it definitely shows its age, I'd say, in that regard, because this is, as we've talked about with any of the third person games we've played, this is sort of everyone was trailblazing in this area with camera, and nobody really quite knew what to do with it,
Right.
And we're all trying different things when it comes to making it as fluid as possible, because we've played things like Mario, things like Tomb Raider, they all had their own take on third person cameras, and then this was sort of this weird Resident Evil hybrid with action. So it's really interesting, and because I have never played, I definitely obviously haven't played this one, but never played any of the series. I was very surprised at how much of, even though the camera is more dynamic than Resident Evil, I didn't know the camera had its own. I guess in my head, I just thought it was a camera controlled on the right stick or something. I didn't realize it was there was no camera control for the player, and it definitely makes some of especially the boss battles, pretty tricky because of it. But I can see how they got here from.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they probably started with a Resident Evil engine, and we're moving right to this. Especially thinking it was going to be Resident Evil 4. It's also wild to consider what Resident Evil 4 became. And how it feels like it got pulled along a little bit by more action-oriented titles.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic game that we'll probably have to play one of these days.
And I think that's another good example of camera experimentation and innovation, right? Because that behind the shoulder camera, not to talk too much about a game we're not playing, but that became a bit of a paradigm for a lot of games after that. I think we've talked about Gears of War as one example, being influenced by Resident Evil 4. So they're always trying stuff. I give them that.
Yep. You got to give them that. I mean, even just having, Resident Evil obviously is a game that we've talked about on the cast, and that was innovative for its time to fully fix the camera like that. I mean, the other big change here, of course, is there's no tank controls. So you have moved away from Resident Evil in that way as well. Of course, Resident Evil 4 would too. But that's a big change as well, and allows for more action. I do also remember this being maybe the game that people talked about in terms of dealing with the stick better when you went from screen to screen or what have you, that, when the camera angle changed position, it would sort of read your intent. Oh, you must be intending to keep going in the direction that you're going when you're pushing the stick, in this, even though it's the opposite direction, and then having you let go of the stick to sort of recalibrate which direction to push to go into the screen, for example. So you leave a screen going, going up, you're pushing up on the stick. You go to a camera now where pushing down on the stick would make more sense for the direction that you're going, but it just maintains, oh, you must mean continue going the direction you were going, to avoid those silly going back and forth from screen to screen, especially when you can't tell the difference. So.
I mean, it tries, it definitely, and like you said, it does improve upon that in predicting what the player's wanting to do. However, it definitely breaks down still. There's definitely times when you eventually have to do something else, and so you have to take your finger off your thumb off of that and then readjust. But yeah, you can see them trying to improve on the model. I didn't, maybe this, and I should have looked this up before, but what were the years for Resident Evil 2? Let's see, 2 and 3. So 2 was 98, 3 was 99. Oh, okay. Code Veronica was 2000. Yeah, I was just trying to see. I don't remember I only played a little bit of 2 and 3, so I don't remember what kind of camera changes they were making at the same time with their other series. You know what I mean? If they started doing some of that, or if 3 just kept working essentially like 4 or like 1 did. So
yeah, my recollection of 2 is that it's pretty much the same camera as 1, but I don't remember 3 at all. I'm not sure I ever, or Code Veronica for that matter. I'm not sure I played either of those. Although, I wouldn't be surprised to find that I own them and haven't opened them, because that's what I do. So I can't really tell you there, and I can't help you with Onimusha Warlords either. The other thing I alluded to earlier was the Capcom 5, 6. I can't remember exactly how many there were, but famously, when the GameCube came out, Capcom backed it to the hilt and said, "We're going to make 5 or 6 games that are going to be exclusive to the GameCube." Resident Evil 4 was one of those, and so was Beautiful Joe, which we mentioned. Kamiya also directed, and I'm not sure I can remember them all. There was also PN03, which was kind of a weird, stylish, sort of, I guess, third-person shooter, kind of an action-based shooter. Rhythm game, sort of, kind of a weird game. I don't remember what the other ones were.
Wasn't
Killer
Okami?
7.
Okami was originally...
No, Okami came out on the PS2 originally. So
originally did? Oh, I thought it was.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
I thought it.
That's what I have it for. So
yeah.
I don't think that was on the.
No, you're right. It didn't come out on. I got that wrong. I was thinking
it came out on the Wii later, though.
Yeah,
so that might be what you're thinking of. But
yeah, it is.
I think what happened though is they also kind of backed off when the GameCube did not sell as well as they had. They had anticipated. So it was kind of. Oh no, they did 5. One was called Dead Phoenix, which looks like never came out. So there you go. It was supposed to be 5, and 4 of them came out, and 1 did not. And Killer 7 came out quite late. So wild. This is a wild history. It's a long time between this and Resident Evil 4, which didn't come out until 2005. So it took them a while to actually find that. Okay,
Yeah.
but let's stop talking about games that we aren't playing, and switch back to the game that we are. So, what do you think about this? What do you think about this Dante fellow?
I don't know. I mean, what the heck is going on? Like this. I mean, it's ridiculous for me to say that and then be a fan of Metal Gear. So I completely before the listeners jump in with that pushback and criticism, I completely own up to that, and I can't argue that. However, though I couldn't tell you the difference of why I feel differently about the two of them. There's just this is a video game. Like
Yeah,
they're not making any bones about that.
I mean,
This
he's the son of Sparta, the legendary Dark Knight.
Yep, that's a sentence that was used. And obviously Sparta spelled differently than Sparta. But a little bit of God of War in there, I guess I was thinking. And then I had actually forgotten about Dante's Inferno, which was that EA game.
Yeah, that's
Also
much
based
later
on
though.
the Divine Comedy. Yeah, but with the Dante and all that,
Also based on Inferno. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, with Virgil, and then I guess Trish. I saw.
Beatrice.
Yeah, is Beatrice, and so it's just such a funny. Can you explain to me too? So there's the saying "Devil may care," right? That's the saying. Is that the original saying? The devil may care.
I guess that. I mean, that's a very English. I mean, I can't imagine that was why they called it that.
But what is Devil May Cry? We don't know yet. Are they going to tell us? What is it? Where is it coming from? We should have looked this up. I don't even think
they tell you in Devil May Cry 13. So that's coming.
Oh, it's coming. Okay,
they're finally going to reveal.
They're working up to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently, because 5 came out, there's a couple. I don't know if Capcom created a sort of previously on video of the whole thing, or if this was a fan one that I was hearing about it. I think it was on Waypoint that I was hearing about it, or no, it was on Giant Bombcast, and they were saying after they watched that to prep for 5, because most of them hadn't played all of the series, they still don't know. It didn't help them at all figure out what's going on. They watched the official video and it still didn't help them understand. But apparently it doesn't matter. So, it's just the thing I'll give them is they know they have an identity to this thing, that is the opening cinematic when Trish comes in and is, and is talking to Dante and all this stuff, and just everything that's happening there. I mean, then there's even the scene, I'm going to bounce all over the place here, but the scene where he gets the first sword that the name is escaping me, Esther, starts with an A. Anyway, where the sword goes through his body, and then the Black Knight snaps his fingers and the door opens, and then he points out. It's just dripping with style. I'm going to steal a phrase that I think is a Patrick Klepek, as he was talking about 5, but it applies to, I think, to the whole series, that instead of sort of the debate of style over substance or substance over style, I think his great phrase that he coined, I think in his write-up on it, was style is the substance in this game. And I think it's really well put, because it feels like you can see why they made it its own thing versus a Resident Evil thing, because it sort of, it deserves to be its own thing, because it's so specific for itself,
Yeah.
The stylization of it. And I don't know, we'll see where the story goes specifically, but it's definitely outside of my wheelhouse in many ways.
I mean, yeah, me too. It's funny because games like this that have a lot of sort of combo stuff that aren't super arcadey. I mean, I really I love the God of War games, despite the number of problems that they have, because it's an easily manageable spectacle, unless apparently you have to walk across a 1 foot wide ledge.
Right.
But in general, I that's a game I can drop into, have a blast with, entirely forget 5 minutes after I played it. And this is a game that I think wants you to get better at. And that's why I referred to the Souls games earlier.
Yeah.
This game needs you to get better at what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just going to be beating your head against it, I think, which requires a lot of focus and attention. And I think, and unfortunately, I've sort of felt like in the first handful of missions here, I already felt like I don't feel like the control is quite sharp enough for me to feel that way. And I don't know if that's me not yet finding the rhythm of the combat. I did find when I was fighting the Scorpion named Phantom that I was defeated by it soundly twice, just totally destroyed. And then I just pressed my attack instead of trying to be super defensive. Like I was trying to run away from it and find places to hide, and instead I just like dove in and just went in as hard as I could on it. And I was like, oh, this game's trying to teach me to be a little bit more aggressive. I was a little surprised. You do have to kind of push the combat, I think, to succeed. On the other hand, failure's expensive here because failure means using up a resource to return to basically continue your game. Otherwise, you have to go back to your last save, which is typically, I guess, always probably at the beginning of the mission.
It is, yeah, and it's
everything.
No matter when you save, even if you save right before that boss or what have you, you still go back to the beginning of the level. So you're essentially, I think, you're just saving your stats and your
state,
things like that, but not your position in the level. So yeah, it's old school and kind of that, it's got that arcadiness to it, that coin op, and apparently some of that same stuff is still, though much more generous, still in the future versions. So it's kind of become a staple. Of the series.
I mean, I'm looking. I made note of all my ranks and how I did, and I was like, first mission, rank C. Well, okay, I'm just starting out, getting a feel of this thing. Mission 2, rank B. All right, yeah, I'm getting the hang of this thing. Mission 3. Rank D. Mission 4, rank D. Which is, and at that point, at some point in there, I had dropped down to the easier difficulty. I think at the beginning of Mission 4, where the lava scorpion chases you down a hallway, I just kept whiffing there. I just like kept running into stuff. I don't even know, but I needed some help to get through there.
I just ran into the door. I just ran away.
Well, you're supposed to run into the door at the end of the hall, right?
No, I just went straight into where the lion statue thing is.
Oh, no kidding! And you can do that?
There, it's right there when you get control. It's literally to his right.
Yeah, his right. Yeah.
So I just, and in fact,
and that's all you had to do.
That's all I had to do.
In fact,
if you go in that door and then go right back out, I think the spider is just gone. So it's it's just a scripted event. It's not even a real battle.
No, that's
sorry.
awful.
So you were struggling through that whole. Maybe they wanted you to run down the hallway. I don't know, but I was like, wait a second.
Oh, I mean, it's all scripted out if you do it. I mean, if you run down that hallway, it's basically chasing after you, and
Oh man,
you can't fight it, but
I just ran. Wild. Yeah,
that makes total sense. I just assumed that would be locked.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. Oh boy.
But I had trouble with that. I had trouble with all the bosses, really. And I don't know. I haven't investigated it yet. Because they give you that one opportunity to drop down to easy, which is by the way, a very interesting moment. It's for those who haven't played or are not watching Brett play. It's a very weird. I don't know. It's such a thing of its time somehow, because they have the splash screen come up and they literally have like 4, long sentences describing what they're trying to tell you about easy mode.
Yeah.
and then giving you the option, okay, now that we've described it to you, which I guess kudos to them for actually describing it to you and not having it in the manual or something. Now, after we've described what it does, do you want to turn it on? It's just such a weird, you can kind of see through the whatever playtesting or the development process where they kind of dawn on them what kind of game they're making and who it is and isn't for. And so like, maybe we should put this stopgap in to allow people to opt out of some of the craziness we're going to put them through or something. It's kind of almost a defensive move on their part. But now I'm worried that that's the only opportunity you will have to do that. So the fact that I didn't do it, because I guess the reason I didn't, in my head, that is probably going to bite me if I stick to it, is I felt like the quote unquote way to play the game is going to be on the normal difficulty, and if I do want to, what I've heard as people talk about 5 and have talked about the series from the beginning, similar to Dark Souls, like you brought up, that there's always that moment in going through the game where you kind of get it, right? You start grokking things and you start getting the rhythms and the telegraphing becomes clear. And so I was kind of thinking, well, if I stay on normal, I will eventually get there if I put the time in. But now I'm worried.
I think you'll get multiple opportunities to drop down for one thing, but also I think that, I mean, I intend to go back. I just wanted to make sure I got through it so that we could talk about it.
Okay.
So
okay.
I basically, and I'll just, this coming weekend when I play again, I'll probably start the game over and just try some more and
dive into
it and try to read it, see what I'm missing, see if there are things that I'm missing, and try to take it apart a little bit more than I did it up to this point. Yep. I just knew that for various reasons that this particular week was going to be a little light on time for me. And even though it was only an hour, it was like, I just want to get that hour-ish done. It was maybe an hour and a half, I guess, for me. I want to get through that, make sure I've seen all of it, and then just kind of let that seep in for a while, because it's sort of similar to what I've been having happen when I play difficult games of like Kingdom Hearts, for example, where I play this thing on the much harder difficulty, and I find that I
thought we were going to get through an episode.
No, God, it's just no. I haven't played it in a week, so it's
not,
I haven't been playing a ton of it.
All right,
but there is a kind of a point where you start to read what they're trying to tell you. You start to you start to be focused enough that it literally feels like time slows down, and I think that that's probably here, and I just haven't got to that point yet, and I just need to spend more time. Sure. I just literally need that time to focus, and the same thing was true of Bayonetta, that you could again, a game that I didn't come close to finishing, but it's a game that I've often kind of wistfully thought of, I wish I kind of stuck with that one, because I know that its spectacle is extraordinary, and it is clearly in the lineage of this game. And I think they're also really good about saying, telling you what the enemies are doing. And if you learn to read that, just as with the Soul series, then you can proceed. And that's anyway, it's a topic that continues to be much in the news because, of course, Sekiro came out this past couple of weeks. So
yeah, that's another good current event to reference, because not being a big Souls player, apparently a lot of some of the fundamentals that they changed for that definitely evolve and as you said, kind of start crossing into the Devil May Cry kind of Bayonetta area, it sounds like. So it's interesting to see that studio that has such a formula starting to break out of their own formula too. So that's a relevant reference for sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna I definitely want to keep tabs on two things as we're playing that I want to try to study and dig into. And one we've talked some about already, and that's the camera and what they're really doing with the camera, because it's very curious to me how they're dealing with, especially the boss battles, because of the the lack of camera control, especially the spider fight. Uh, not only is the camera weirdly placed during that fight in that room, but the room itself is also weirdly designed because of the pillars and then the size of the boss and all these different things. So it's going to be intriguing to me to watch to see how in this era, again, it's just so fascinating to me because of this these sort of like 3 to 5 year span of all the different third person cameras going on and everyone trying these different things.
Yeah.
And then where we are today, it's just very interesting to me because at this phase, like we talked about earlier in the episode, so many games were just wildly different.
Yeah.
In how they're problem solving this stuff. And of course, you and I were not making third person action games, so we weren't dealing with this stuff.
I mean, technically, but
well, yeah, okay. You started to delve into that, right?
You can play Starfighter as third person.
Oh, I see what you meant. Okay, there you go. Yeah. All right, a little different, but yes,
a little different, yeah. But it's a shooter.
I thought you were referencing Full Throttle, but
no.
The studio was right with Bounty Hunter and some things like that, but we weren't.
We definitely
wasn't problem solving it myself. So it's just always been an interesting kind of thing that I didn't have to deal with until Tomb Raider myself. But then the second thing that I definitely agree with you.
Well, and Indie.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but I wasn't dealing with.
Yeah, you weren't. Yeah, you weren't dealing with that. Yeah. It's the design.
But the other thing is the telegraphing for sure, because so far, and I had the same trouble with Kingdom Hearts because I didn't force myself to play on the harder difficulties, as you said. The boss battle specifically, the spider scorpion for sure, he's got a little better telegraphing, but even he doesn't have great telegraphing. And then with I don't know what that weird shadow tiger lion thing.
Oh yeah, so I got to not fight that because I dropped down difficulty. I saw it once and then dropped down difficulty, and he doesn't appear. You just get other things.
Serious?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was actually what prompted me. It wasn't actually the scorpion chasing me down the hallway. It was getting to that and being like, okay, this is just one hit killing me, and I don't even know what to do.
It's really hard to figure out. I eventually beat him. Yeah. But the thing is, I'm not sure I don't know why or how exactly it ended up being. So I think it's interesting that you mentioned with your Phantom fight that you ended up feeling like the game was teaching you to wade into it and just go full on, and that's where your success came from. And I will agree with you that that's where I had better success. However, I feel like my failing so far is being good at avoidance, because I feel like in some of the descriptions of things like the dodge and how to use R1 and stuff like that they are encouraging you to, even in the boss design for Phantom, like some of his attacks are about sort of getting away from him and running and jumping and stuff. So I feel like my suspicion, though I may be wrong, as we play, we'll figure this out. My suspicion is the avoidance is really kind of one of the keys to success. I don't think they have a parry. At least we don't have one yet, or a block or something. But it's like, look for your opportunities, look for the tells for the attacks, avoid the attacks, and then go in. Because every time with the Black Knight and the Tiger thing, whenever I would wade in and just kind of try to spam, it just wouldn't work. They would just take me down too quickly. So, and I don't have enough health, and they do too much damage. So, but the whole key to that is being able to read the tells, and I'm not good at that yet. So, it'll be interesting to see if we can get over that hump. I guess we have to, because you probably have to finish the game. So
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. There's like 20 or 23 missions, something along those lines. We'll probably play 5 or so for the next one, maybe 6. I mean, the missions are pretty short, so I'm not. They're pretty short. And I think part of that is that the game is there's different ways to teach difficulty, and the way that this game is doing it is basically pushing you to a point of failure and then saying, okay, well, you can drop it down to easy if you want. However, if you want to keep playing, you just have to keep reloading if you can't make it through. We'll give you a few tries with the yellow orbs or whatever, but you're going to have to just figure it out. There's not a ton of extra information. It's at this time pre sort of internet's not common at this point. There's certainly no let's plays or anything. There's, if you might be able to go on a forum somewhere at this time and go look it up and try to read somebody's badly worded text about how to actually defeat the thing. You're gonna want, whatever, game facts. Were you about to say?
Yeah, game facts and text file or something. Yeah,
right. Yeah, so it's your opportunities to see what people are doing are pretty limited in terms of strategy. And yeah, it's the game is there, and you need to meet it on its own terms, I think, to defeat it.
Well, I ended up, to your point about restarting, like that's because I didn't drop it down. Maybe that's what especially on Phantom, that's what I ended up doing. I replayed that level because I would lose all my yellow orbs maybe 4 times.
Yeah. And I think it really wants you to do that. I mean, I think that's what the game is definitely encouraging, is you're gonna basically wear yourself into that groove. You can't help but pick up the player skill if you repeat things again and again. I think that one of the things that we've sort of gotten away from with regards to difficulty is making people see something again and again. It's now players don't expect that, and they want this big game that they could just kind of keep pushing through, and that's a real significant change since this time. And this is a game that's like, well, we've got these 20 something missions, fairly short levels, but you're going to beat your head against them. And if you want to beat them on whatever the normal level of difficulty, I think for me, my only hope and one worry I have with a game of this style is that my hands are like 48 years old and not 20 something, and I'm a little worried about whether I literally physically can do this sort of thing anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen with that. So
yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. Well, let's have to see how the two oldsters manage. There is one other set of systems that we didn't mention. We won't talk too much about it yet because we probably haven't delved into it very much. But there is the ability to grind to some degree orbs, and so I'm wondering, not that we will probably have time to do, although you tend to. If Kingdom Hearts is any example, you will grind sometimes. You could grind red orbs and really kind of try to upgrade your stuff, or the other thing you can do with them is buy consumables. In the Phantom battle, I actually I had a green star for some reason. I don't know if you start with it or what. I didn't buy it. And I did use it.
Yeah, I think you do start with 1 or 3 or something like that, or maybe you pick it up. Yeah.
I think at least right now you can only carry 1 at a time, I think, because I tried to buy
so 1.
But I did use it, and it did help. I mean, I got down to almost, dead, and then I used it and got full health, and then was able to, to get much further in the battle. But it's a consumable, so it's like you don't keep it.
Yeah.
But I guess you could just spend a lot of time, for your old man hands, and grinding and getting a bunch of...
I might try that this coming weekend just to keep running around the first level or something like that. I mean, I think it also, one of the things that I think it's doing though is grading you on how quickly you get through things too. It's I don't know how that scoring system actually works, but it's got to be time based.
Yeah. Well, and maybe how many, because each fight you have, they do give you sort of that the crazy style, right? I was
Right,
joking
sure.
about
Yeah.
dull, cool, bravo, and so
Awesome. Was it awesome or
yeah,
astonishing or something like that?
yeah. And so yeah, so then maybe they do time and like how stylish you were with the individual battles in the level or something. Yeah, it's just the whole grading thing, which apparently is a part of the series all up, is very interesting, and just the tone and style, and it's so darn gothic. Like, wow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, in every way. And I just don't like. There's the section where you fall in the water and you're fighting the skulls.
Yeah. The
Like, what is
skulls.
it's just it turns on a dime.
Yeah.
It- what is
What
happening?
is happening there? Yeah, that is a very, very strange moment. And I
I just
definitely was
don't
kidding
care.
about like, oh, look, I've fallen into somebody's high school art notebook.
It's so funny, but I can see in my Metal Gear brain, how it's appealing to people too, because it is such
Yeah,
it's
it's
such
so over the top. It's so
yeah,
absurd. Yeah, yeah,
so it's kind of fun in that way.
yeah.
And so I'm kind of excited. I don't know if we'll do it. We haven't talked about it, but if we do end up doing a bonus episode with five, because I've heard five is again just on other podcasts and stuff, it's way more generous. They still have like yellow orb type stuff where you're getting restarts and stuff, but apparently you just have so many orbs, and they're just very generous with it. So it sounds like a very modern version of what we're playing in a good way. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, this was not that. They were
Yeah, no,
still
this is definitely not that. No, and they're finding their way, right? I mean, this was gonna be a Resident Evil game, and some weird bug in Onimusha leads them in a different direction, and it's happy accidents as we sometimes talk about. And they get to this thing, and they go, you know what? Let's go all in on that weirdness, and that's great. I mean, I don't know that I ever finished Viewtiful Joe, but that was a game I played a bunch of, and was like, this is a totally different style, and it owes a lot to this, and it's way cartoony, but in terms of how it plays, it's very similar.
yeah.
It's a lot more on a plane than this game is, so it's kind of a mix with fighting games as well. But you see this lineage, and I am really curious what the new Devil May Cry looks like. Because I am curious how this thing turns out. Where does this thing go? And it has had quite good critical response, as did this original game. I looked up the Metacritic on this thing, and it was over 90. It was like 90, 93, something like that, 93, 94,
Yeah.
which is quite good. I don't think today it would be there, just because I think the controls, at least so far. Now, I also recently had to buy a new PlayStation 2 controller because my other one was dropping. I think the battery had worn out or something, so it wasn't holding a charge at all.
You're playing on
No,
PlayStation.
I mean my PS3 controller. I'm playing the HD collection on PS3, and I had to get a new controller, and the buttons are super stiff. And I wonder if sometimes I'm literally just not getting the button presses, because I've seen that in other games. Like, I just jammed the X button, nothing happened, and the buttons are a little stiff. So maybe that's part of my problem. I should try to see if I have any other PS3 controllers lying around that aren't quite so stiff.
That'd be good. Yeah. I'm playing on the original. I did run out and get an old copy, and so I'm playing on
Oh, cool.
PlayStation 2. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I thought I'd go for some sweet trophies. So,
Oh, of course, the trophies. Why
yep.
didn't I think of that?
Yeah, because that's me.
Also, there's a taunt button. They've devoted a complete high value button to taunt. So I don't know what that means. I hope it actually is something that
I
is
wonder if
useful.
it amps up your style in some way, causes them to
Oh,
get angry, maybe continues a combo going because you've spent the time to do
yeah.
that, to let them close distance. Maybe, I don't know.
Huh.
A lot of these sort of combat systems are still a little opaque.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they become less so
And
as we.
I looked at the manual. So the PS2 manual might be better. I haven't tracked one of those down yet. The PS3 manual is there's nothing there. It's like, oh, here's the controls.
Right.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it yet. I'll keep you posted on that. Ironically, looking up a PDF for the original wasn't easy to find. I found the PS3 one, but I was just quickly looking it up before just opening the one I had. But yeah, I'll keep you posted on if there's anything in there. As an anecdote, if you may have found it, but in the menu they have a section where they have write-ups on a file section similar to Resident Evil. Didn't they have something like that? Where you keep kind of your papers and stuff, but they have a log entries for the enemies. And if you read those, they do give you some clues on things. Oh. Like for Phantom, they talk about hitting him in the mouth. That's where he's the most vulnerable. Though
yeah, I worked that out. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I found like jumping on his back and hitting him in the back was actually more effective for me, but they didn't mention that. I was literally just jumping on top of him.
Well, then you're opening yourself up to his tail because he's a scorpion, Tim.
Yeah. Okay. Darn it. How did we get there? Let's move on.
Okay. What do you say we quickly go? We've got a couple of emails. Do you want to get to those? Yeah. Let's sure. Turn to those. We've got this might be the last of our Diablo discussion because, of course,
it won't end. The primeval will not die.
It's never ending. The emails are just going to get remixed every week. People are going to take parts from old emails and put them together.
Procedurally generated modular emails.
Yeah, that's what I'm
actually saying. Pretty funny. You should write come on, you got to do this. Write a program.
I'd probably write it in Tracery. It's not that hard to do that sort of thing anymore. Anyway,
and takes all of our emails and mixes and matches them into these weird. I think that's hilarious. I don't know why I think that's so funny. It's probably be a disaster, but
you could just be a little punchy.
I did get level 70 in Diablo 3. So
Jesus.
Yep, that's been my
with that character we played.
No. This is
with your demon hunter. Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm doing this season, so I want to, I'm trying to get through that before it ends.
Yeah, that's important.
How do you want me to go first? Or?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, subject is Diablo from Mr. Beast. Hi guys, Father Beast here. I've been listening for a while now, but this is the first game that I felt I should chime in on. In examining just what made the Diablo experience so enticing, I think the great variety of things going on in the exploration has to do with one of the draws. You start with the random maps, which were interesting to explore. You have the variety of monsters from cowards to fat guys to dogs to witches. Well, that's what I called them. You have the loot, which might come from creatures vomiting up gold as they die, or could be in chests, or in other things like sarcophaguses,
sure,
and barrels, which might have monsters lurking in them. And there's also the shrines you run across. I can't believe you guys didn't mention the shrines in your episode. They're clearly a sort of holdover from the roguelike influence, since you don't know what a gloomy shrine or a spooky shrine is until you use it. But the main thing pulling me on was the quests. Even the stupid ones like the sign in the inn or the magic mushroom, which I didn't get the magic mushroom. Having them not all be as serious as the main plot was a welcome change of pace. There was one time that Wirt had an item I just had to have, a brutal sword of speed, and it ended up selling a lot of stuff I already had and filling every slot in my inventory with gold, and it still wasn't enough. But he just said, "I'll let you have it for what you've got." Oh, interesting. Such a lust for equipment was never equaled in the later games in the series, since the store inventory changed all the time. I could drone on about the things I've pulled off in this game, but you have a lot of emails to cover, so I'll just finish with a question. Since you could use your disk to spawn what was basically a demo on someone else's computer, a version you could play through the entire game, even play multiplayer, how much do you think they lost in sales by letting people play the game for free? Father Beast. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's he had a good breakdown of just, I think, boiling down all of the core loops in that game that were really
and we didn't ever talk
incentivized.
about Sarcophagi, so
Yeah, right. And shrines, right? We
I
didn't
mean, yes,
talk too much.
shrines. I meant, sorry.
He mentioned it once at the end, maybe after he wrote this, but
Yeah, that's
but yeah,
possibly, yeah.
but yeah, the shrines were fun. In fact, we had a funny moment in multiplayer on the first stream where one of the shrines teleports you away from your
Put you in
partner
another room, yeah.
a room with enemies. So we found that out the hard way. I didn't remember that one, but shrines were kind of fun to even, not only did you not know what they were, but even the description of them once you activated them wasn't super clear all the time. It was a little bit like a riddle. So you're like, well, I guess that probably means I got my my gear, fixed up, repaired.
Right.
But it didn't explicitly say that.
Right,
so,
right. It said something, mystical.
And then ironically,
The path of the righteous man, or whatever. So
yeah. And then it's just so funny still playing a lot of 3 right now. It's like, again, just everything is just so plainly stated and just in your face. Like you use a shrine that tells you exactly what it's doing.
yeah, here you go, plus 10 to this for this many minutes, whatever. Yeah.
So I agree with Mr. Beast that you kind of lose some of that magic in the later versions of the game. On the sales question, yeah, I mean, I think we actually, I remember sort of vaguely having conversations about how bold it was for them to do that. The one thing I will say, though, that I'm sure Brett would agree with me on, the interesting thing, it does seem sometimes counterintuitive to make decisions like that, because you sort of quote unquote are giving games away for free. However, what if the game is really good, what ends up happening is people end up buying copies for themselves anyway, because you may not have the access to your friend's game all the time. And so I think ultimately it probably ended up helping them, and people would just go out and get more copies anyway because they were exposed to it. So it is very much like a demo in that way.
Yeah.
It's just you got to play a lot more of it, and because this game was procedural, and because it was about sort of that never-ending experience, and you had a character in an RPG sense that was leveling up, you really were incentivized to go get your own copy anyway. And I would equate it to similarly to shareware with Doom or what have you. There was a lot of sort of opinion about Doom at the time, and it's like, well, you kind of get your fill by playing the shareware version. It's like, oh yeah, I kind of get it, but I guarantee that free experience on Doom is what made them, millions or billions or whatever they made off of Doom, because people had access to such a big chunk of the game for free. They're like, well, I want to get my own copy.
Yeah.
So similar.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an avenue for virality too. It's just more people get to see the game, and and games are expensive, and this gives people an opportunity to see, oh, you know what, this thing really has the goods. I'm hooked. I want to have it. I want to play it all night. And at that point, you're
just one taste.
Yeah, just one taste. The first it's free. That model has seemed to work out pretty well for drug dealers. I guess it worked out for Blizzard as well.
Oof.
Yep. What level did you say you were again there, Tim?
Yeah.
On the game that you already played through on PC? Just asking. Yeah. So I think it's working all right for them. I think in the long run, I mean, I think it also buys goodwill. I think it's generous. And I think that helps you. Maybe not on this title, but on the next. So I think that's ultimately a win for a company. And we talked a lot about the generosity of the design, I think last time. So I won't get into that again, but yeah, I think that's just another avenue to show that. And I think that customers will have loyalty and reward that. So yeah. All right. I have a second Diablo email here from Eric Fox. Subject is final Diablo thought, until I remix this into its own parts of it. Hi guys, loved your series on Diablo. one thing that I don't think got mentioned was how prevalent hacking was in the online game. All my friends and I pretty much exclusively used hacked items. I remember the names of these items because they were so powerful: Godly Plate of the Whale and Archangel's Staff of Apocalypse. One time I remember loading up a Battle.net game and someone had cast Firewall in town and there were ears everywhere. I loved how killing another player meant you got an ear. Also, duping was trivially easy. You did it just by picking up an item off the ground at the same time as you selected something in your inventory. Keep up the great work, Eric.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I
forgot about the ears.
Yeah, I forgot about the ears too. I didn't mention the hacking. It was something that that David had talked about in his talk briefly at GDC a couple of years, 3 years back, I guess it was. And I didn't see the point in bringing it up again. I mean, this was definitely a time where we were all figuring that out. How much do we care, and things like that. I think this was probably one of those games where we started to care more because there was so much public multiplayer play. This was probably the time when that was starting to change.
Yeah.
I mean, but it was happening before this too, even with Doom and stuff, because there was no detection. Yeah, Quake. There was no real detection of various sorts of cheats that people might have on their PCs, and it is very, very difficult on PC peer-to-peer games to avoid cheating, because there's really no there's no way to prevent it to a certain degree when it's peer to peer. If it's not ultimately communicating with a server owned by the publisher or what have you, that can make determinations and validate, it's difficult to avoid some of those things. I don't know. I think that the hacking end of it is probably not ultimately harmful to the game. I don't really know. I do remember like trainers were a deal at different times in different games. Like WoW had a big thing with that, right? You know, so it's a thing with online that is just a tough thing to deal with. I mean, even console games of this era, people were finding ways to cheat by packet sniffing, like Halo, which, you know, I mean, it's just part of the beast.
Yeah. I had forgotten about the duping thing, but I do remember that. Yeah, that was definitely a discovery. The ears are hilarious, and yeah, fighting in town, such a funny. I wonder how with the GOG version. I wonder if that's already. I wonder if they did anything with that to prevent.
I guarantee not. I mean, they're doing trivial, like, tell me how big this folder is type checks, but those are very easy to get around, right? Ultimately, that has to be sent in a packet somewhere, so you just change it. You know, that's why you have to play. If you're going to play on the GOG BattleNet, that's what it's actually doing there. That's why you're limited. You can't change resolution, do things like that, because that uses a different DLL, and so it like is literally checking, like, oh, give me a checksum of the memory or something, that the memory space of this game. So they are doing some sort of trivial cheat detection, but there's a lot that does not catch. And detecting cheats is tough. That it's an unending arms race, because you find some way to fix this and they find something else. You know, I remember how back in the Quake era, there were things like, oh, somebody has replaced their DLL so that walls are transparent or whatever. You know, it just so they have
wall hacks.
Yeah, more information about the world, and it's just, how much can you do? You know, I think one of the things that we have in sort of the modern era that makes this stuff a little bit less prevalent is that now there's esports and things like that, so people actually show up and they're on camera. You can see them and what have you, and in games like those, I think there's a lot more at stake, obviously, because it's financial and all that. But I think with these games where it's like, well, okay, so you hacked your game, did that really hurt? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
probably.
You mean, well, I mean, unless you're on the other end of that, is that, or do you mean just by yourself? You're hacking it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on the other end of it, I guess sure you could. People could be killing you and taking your stuff, and that would be lousy. But I sort of think,
Well,
that
I mean,
happens
even
once, and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to play on the public BattleNet anymore. Password games only with my buddies, and that's pretty much how I
yeah, if
played.
that's an
So
option.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, even today, even like PUBG has hacking problems, right? And that is a server-based online game.
Yep.
And
Because, like I said,
and
it's very difficult.
makes the experience worse for people who are trying to play legitimately. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a yeah.
Yeah, and
But
I
this
think
was
and that game is a
great.
game that is only that, right?
Yeah.
So I think the environments differ, and so I don't know. I mean, I think that there are also more people playing games too. So you have a wider. I'm devil may care about that sort of stuff. So,
oh boy.
Yep.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice.
Wanted to tie it all the way back.
Wow. Yeah. Full circle. Good.
All right. So for next time,
demons happen.
I'm gonna also say, hey, shoot us those emails at devgameclub@gmail.com. We love to get email from the readers. And also, if you haven't in the past, go ahead and give us a rating or review via the podcasts app infrastructure stuff in iOS. That is helpful for us to reach new listeners. That business out of the way. Next time, I'm thinking maybe we play through level 10.
Okay.
6 more missions.
So 6.
I have no idea what any of the missions are. I'm just trying to cut it up in a reasonable amount. So we'll probably be playing 6, 7, 6 or something like that. I think there's 23 is my recollection. So
yeah, I hope there's not a boss as often as there has been so far. That's well, or maybe they're just going to teach us.
I think that's maybe just part of it. It's just that they're frequent.
Yeah.
So I mean, because those are the exciting bits. We'll talk about boss battles at some point, and probably go into individual battles that really stand out. All right. Well, with that, I want to let everybody know you can find the podcast on Twitter at DevGameClub, and my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
You'll find me most nights streaming whatever I'm playing on weekdays. Currently, I'm playing Alpha Protocol.
What?
Yep. Huh. I have a copy of that I'm going to send you because, of course, I accidentally bought 2.
It is a game that I regret not playing.
Yeah, it's the combat.
I like stuff, and I like Obsidian.
Yeah, the combat part of it is a little rough. That's not great, but I'm really curious about the conversation stuff. And I have read an article where it's like the way to play this game is to play it on easy, not care about the combat at all, just kind of blaze through that as fast as you can. And that's why I play on easy, and then explore all the weird dialogue stuff. So I'm kind of curious about that. Anyway, on the weekends, I tend to play whatever we're playing on Dev Game Club. So that will be Devil May Cry come the weekend. You can find me there at twitch.tv/Brett Duville. And that's, I guess, all. Thanks so much for joining us, and have fun playing games this week. Good night.
Good night.